Thank you for having me. Thank you so much, Gertrude, and thank you to you, everyone listening to me. Um, I really don't know where to start, but I have a few topics going through my mind, and when I logged on to listen to you just for a few minutes, and you guys were talking about finding your spirituality, and I met Gertrude talking about the loss, and also Tashini. Did I say that right, Tashini? Yeah. Talking about forgiveness, the pain, and then forgiving someone that did wrong by you. I kept on thinking, where do I go with what I was planning to talk about? Initially, my plan was to talk about getting rid of negative thinking. I'm a psychotherapist, and that's one thing that I do really well at. I mean, out of numerous things, but I know that Genesis, or the deep foundation, or the foundation of depression and anxiety is what we think about, what we allow ourselves to dwell on. It was Les Brown that said, we have no power over the thoughts that pops into our minds, but we have power over the thoughts that we dwell on. So if we dwell on negative thoughts, what would that do to us? I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm whatever. I'm good for nothing because somebody said it 20 years ago. And I dwell on that thought, and I see everyone, I see them with what I believe they were thinking because of what was going on in my mind. So anxiety and depression and other mental health, apart from the biological reasons that we may be suffering from all that, when we also look at the thoughts that we dwell on, if it's negative, it takes us to a place that we don't want to go to. And if it is positive, that's when we feel like, oh my goodness, life is good, everything is good. And I will relate this back to when last year, March 31st, 2020. 2020 has been a year for majority of people around the world as a year that we will rather forget. For me, 2020 March, actually the 31st, became a day that nearly messed me up. And that stood by me for months. And now talking about getting rid of negative thinking, I realized that when what happened, it took me in that journey whereby my energy, my thoughts, everything was on actually negative thinking. I was so much in that place, and the more I was thinking negatively, the more I saw myself going into a dark hole. And if you've been in a dark hole before, I'm sure you will understand what I'm talking about. When you're in a dark hole and the hole, you can feel yourself going down and down and down the more. It's not a good place to be. What happened to me 31st of March 2020, I received a phone call at 11:30 p.m. I was already in my pajamas, about to go to bed, and then the phone call came in. And what was the phone call about? It was about my mother, my loving mother that just passed away. And I saw my life in front of me shattered. It was a very bad feeling that I felt. I was screaming on top of my voice. I was crying, and 2, 3 weeks after, I was still in a very bad place, crying, sad, overwhelmed with that feeling um, of sadness. And that led to the negative thoughts that followed. Um, because I was in that space in my life at that time, I couldn't see myself helping anybody else. I've been a clinical psychotherapist for decades. By that time, I saw that I've helped so many people through their grief journey, and now it's my turn and I can't even help myself. So I started second guessing myself, and the first negative thought that pops in, move to the next, and then the next, and then the next. And this created fear in me. This created panic attacks in me. This created so many other emotions that I actually found so difficult to shake off. Over all these years, I've managed to, I've been doing this for other people and I've been doing it for myself. But this time around, I couldn't do it for myself. I just couldn't. I couldn't. It was so bad. It was so bad. And I kept on thinking, do I want to go down this path? Um, do I want to go through this? I want to keep feeling this way that I'm feeling? Listening to Meghan Markle, Harry's wife, talk about the impact of the mental health, and the way she was feeling reminded me of what was going through my mind. I've always been a strong girl. I've always been the strong woman that, get things done, and if it doesn't work, I move on. But that time around, I find myself not able to do it for me. And it was bad. But what did I do to get to the other side? How do you get rid of negative thinking? And there will be times that it will happen, no matter how strong you are. But when it happens, what do you do? What are you supposed to do? What do you need to do? Unfortunately for me, during that time was when we had lockdown here in Melbourne. With lockdown in Melbourne, no one could travel. No one could come over and see me. Even those living just down the street, 10 minutes away, they can't, because you can only drive to the shop and back home. That was the law then, and no one could come and visit. It was just myself, my kids, and my husband. And it was so isolating. So I struggled. So how do you now get rid of negative thinking? What did I do? And I will share this with you. Deep down, when you look at it, negative thinking tends to be you being afraid. What are you afraid of? Afraid of losing control, afraid of not being in charge. All right. And I saw that time I wasn't in control of my emotions. I wasn't in control of what was going on in my mind. I wasn't in control at all. It was as if I was watching myself from afar. I was watching somebody else, and this thought going on and on from one negative to the next. And that small thing became a bigger thing for me. So what are the things that I did? Okay. I started doing what most people call meditation. Meditation. And what is meditation? Meditation to me is about creating that space, that space that I can just focus on here and now, being quiet and allowing my mind to be quiet, letting things out, and then just focusing on here and now. I started practicing that every morning and every evening before going to bed. The other thing that I started doing was to focus on gratitude. We tend to forget about everything in our lives that are working out well. When we're in that spot in our lives, we focus our energy or our mind and everything in our lives on what isn't working well. For me, I realized that I was focusing my mind on the fact that I will never be able to see my mother again. I was focusing on what I should have done. I traveled for my speaking engagements in 2019 instead of traveling to Nigeria to see my mother. So the regret that I shouldn't have gone to US, I should have gone to see my parents. So I was having, regrets about that. So my energy was focused on what I should have done that I didn't do. And that was taking so much energy out of me. So I had to kind of talk to myself that no, mom is in a good place. Mom did well by raising me to be this strong woman that I am. She worked hard. She was there for me. She prayed for me every day. And yes, she's still watching over me. And not just that alone, everything about her that I can remember, I started bringing all that into, I started focusing my energy to bring all those into my reality, that this is it. She's never coming back, but what did she leave behind? And that reminded me of what we parents do. Instead of focusing our energy on raising so much money or having so much money to leave for our children, our focus should be more on raising children, leaving something within them, something that they will keep tapping into year in, year out. Something that will help them to grow and become the best version of themselves. So it's not about the money that we leave for them. It will be good. Money, of course, it's always a good thing. But what are you focusing your energy in building in your children? What are you depositing in them? And I remembered one particular story that I've shared a few times whenever I'm on a platform speaking about one time that my mother did something that I will never forget. We had a guest, a very important guest that came to visit my mom and dad. And this guy, being a very rich, thinkingly rich, a millionaire actually, came to our house. We fed him. My mom used the best of her silverware and chinaware and whatever. We set the table and we gave him a nice meal. So when he finished, my mom said to myself and my siblings, okay, guys, you guys go and pack the dining table, our guest has finished. So we went there, we packed the table, the plates and everything. We got to the kitchen and I made a mistake by saying, oh, now I can have the leftover of a rich man. And my mom was so appalled by that statement. She looked at me You gave me that look, that how dare you? Why would you say something like that? I was like 12 years old. That this guy worked out to be who he is. Why do you show so much enjoyment or joy by wanting to eat the leftover of a rich man? What is stopping you from working hard to becoming a rich woman? Because you can. She said that. And yes, at that point, at that time, I could see myself rolling my eyes in my head saying, here we go again. But she planted a seed that germinated when I wasn't looking. So angrily, I left the food, I left the kitchen, I went to my room, and what she said kept on ringing in my ears. Come to think of it, why was I so happy wanting to eat somebody else's leftover? Because it's rich? Nah. So she did that. She didn't know what she did, but she did that. Her statement made a lot of difference to me, to the extent that when I was choosing my line of career and everything, I'd rather be this, not this, because I'm not going to be working under somebody or not being proud of anything. It was just the way I started seeing life ever since the day she made that statement. So my point today is, what do you plant in your children? What do you give to them? What do you say to them? What do you use whatever opportunity comes around to educate them, to get them to see life for how it should be, not the way it is right now? And that's one of the things, I mean, so many others that my mom did. And I started recollecting things like that. I started, looking at the person that she was and how she did things, and started picking out few things to be grateful for. What am I grateful for? So every day when I do my meditation, and then I spend some time thinking about the relationship I had with her and what I can be grateful for, or what I can remember at that day. So I started making notes in my journal. This is it, this is it, this is it. And by doing all that continuously, I was able to set myself free from what was holding me back. All right. So I felt helpless. And during that time, defeating the feeling of helplessness became something that I worked so hard on. And I would love to read something that I wrote in my journal at that time. I wrote, as humans, we sometimes come across difficult situations in life where we feel helpless about certain circumstances. And right now, I'm feeling that way. There is nothing wrong with feeling weak occasionally when nothing goes right for you. But make sure the feeling does not get to your head and bog you down. So that was me talking to me at that time. So, and from time to time, I go back into my journal and I read, and I go back and I read. Even if you initially feel helpless about something, you must work hard to overcome it and move ahead. There are many people who become affected by the feelings of helplessness that causes them to lose focus, and eventually they find themselves in a miserable state. And I don't ever want to be there again. I was there and I'm trying to get out from it, and I don't want to ever go to that deep hole again. It sounded, when when you listen to that, to you it might be like, oh, that's so childish, or whatever you want to call it. But for me, that was part of my way of getting healed from the way I have been, or the way I was thinking, the negative way that I was thinking, that was dragging me down into that deeper hole that I don't want to be in. The other thing that I would like to also highlight is the inner conflict. Um, I said this before, that it was as if I was watching somebody else. It was more like I was watching somebody else going through what I was going through. And I had the inner conflict. And what was that inner conflict about? It was one part of me. It was just like you have part A and part B of me. The part A will go into that psychotherapy mode, that you are a psychotherapist. You're supposed to know better. What would you say to your client right now? If it's your client, what would you say to her? And the other part of me, the second part, part B, was saying, but was your mother. You never see her again. So I had this inner conflict. And from time to time, it still does come back, right? But it gets better. So how do you overcome the inner conflict? The day that I decided to get back into living was my day that I set new goals as to, okay, what is my motivation? What is motivating me to want to get out of this hole that I'm in, to start living again? What is motivating me to do that? And what are the goals that I need to set? Because when you have something to look forward to, when you have something to work towards, it drives you. Every morning, you take one step towards it, and the next step, and the next step. So I had to go back into the last conversation that I had with my mother. And the conversation was like this. The Sunday before, I went to church and I was wearing a black dress. And I wrote something on my page that day about how we do things without even know the reason why we do those things. We do them based on other people's influences. And I used the black dress that I was wearing that day as an example, that take a look at this black dress. I'm usually a girl that don't go for black dress at all, because I'm black and I'm beautiful already. So I need lighter color clothes to, to accentuate, to just, get my beauty to be seen. I need, I need contrast. That's the point. So that, look at this dress that I don't normally wear black, and I picked up this black dress this morning and I put it on, and I liked the way it looked on me. And I started thinking that day that, why didn't I really like black dress? Why don't I wear black dress? Then I remembered that my mom used to say, while I was growing up, she used to say, why would you wear black dress when you're not mourning? You're not in mourning, so go and take off that black dress. So to me, I've already associated black dress with mourning. Oh, yeah, I'm not mourning now. I'm all right, So I wrote that piece on my page that day. And the following day, so it was Sunday that happened. And on Monday, I spoke to my mother and she was saying, oh, by the way, I like your black dress on you. And I said, oh, did you see what I wrote? And she said, oh, don't you know, I always read everything you post. I always watch your videos. And let me just tell you this, I spend a lot of money every week buying data. In Nigeria, they buy data. There's no pay as you go. Is it pay as you go, or you have to pay when you need to go online. You just go and buy data, upload your data, and you use it. So she said to me, I spend a lot of money buying data every week so I can watch you, so I can read whatever you put out there. You always have great content. Just keep it up. I don't know where you get this I don't know how you get to be who you are, but I thank God that you're my daughter. She made that comment, and it was 2 weeks later that she passed on. So for me, whenever I had that conflict, I always go back to what she said, that Vicky, go back. She said this. If it's true that all those that have gone before us can look down and watch what we do, will she be happy seeing you the way you are? So no matter what was coming out from these two parts of me, I always combat it with that. And that always worked for me.